Man, you need to buy yourself a gun. What? Gun? Oh. What? Like a handgun. Personal protection. If somebody tries to mug you. What? What if your government tries to throw you in a can? What? You're gonna want a shotgun. Oh. What? An automatic rifle. And a lot of ammo. Gun? Yeah, gun.
We're all set to riot. Buy a gun before you lose your Second Amendment. Buy a gun. They'll burn you out like you Waco. They'll stick your ass in a camp. Jackbooted cops in riot gear, gonna kick your ass and laugh. The revolution is on its way. Better lock and load your AK. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. We're all set to riot. Buy a gun before you lose your Second Amendment. Buy a gun. They gave your money to the banksters. They stole your pension funds. It's time that we took to the streets. It's time we had our turn. A revolution is on its way, and the founding fathers would say, buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. You gotta riot in the streets. Revolution's not clean and neat. You gotta riot in the streets. Revolution's not clean and neat. You gotta drag them through the streets.
It is Tuesday. We are live. This is PrimerTime on UCY.tv. My name is Michael, and I kill snakes when they scare the crap out of me.
Bring you your brown pants. My name is Nick, and I'm glad I don't live in a spot where I got a lot of snakes coming at me.
Boy, I'll tell you what, that's a way to get the blood moving for this show tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, I just killed a large rattlesnake in my garage, and well,
You just made him a good snake.
I made him the best kind of snake there is, and so let's talk about firing a 12 gauge inside of a garage.
Okay. Preferably not one of the things that you would do quite often and only in an emergency, which I guess this would qualify as.
I think this qualifies as an emergency. I don't know how this would play out in other jurisdictions with different laws, but luckily I'm in a fairly rural area and not in a heavily sparse, or I'm actually in a sparsely populated area of that rural area. And so there was I didn't have any neighbors really to worry about saying, oh, he just fired a shotgun in the garage. But in some other areas, I think that might be a problem.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's interesting that you're in your abode and you have this snake who's decided to make her way inside, because I think we've been able to determine that this, in fact, was a female.
I think so. Now, okay, let's preface this by, we know a little bit about guns. All we know about snakes is that when they're dead, they're really good. So I don't know exactly how snakes give birth or whatever. I was able to determine that this was a rattlesnake. And I don't know if these were snake babies in them. I don't know if they give live birth or if they do eggs. And I did not do any kind of snake research on this. So it'll be interesting to find out. By the way, we have the phones tonight. The number is 718-717-8296. If you wish to call in with one of your snake elimination stories or something similar to ask us about tonight's episode of discharging firearms in the house and killing reptiles.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I have very little experience with. I think I've only killed one snake, and it was a western diamondback rattlesnake that happened to make its way into a garage that was getting converted into a living room. And that was going on about 23, 24 years ago. And
was that at Mom's house?
That's exactly where that was at.
Really? I didn't know about that. Tell me about that.
Yeah, when you take out a garage in Arizona, there's not a whole lot of reason to go ahead and cover up the room. Generally, coyotes or anything like that that's a big threat will stay away. And really, all you do have to worry about is snakes. And we did tarp it up, but apparently we didn't tarp it up strong enough to where a snake wasn't going to get in underneath. And before the workers came in to finish up installing drywall and starting to lay in insulation in the walls, I went in there just to clean out any nails that they would have had, or drywall screws on the ground. And I went to go reach for a broom, and sure enough, as soon as I got within arm's reach of the broom, I started hearing the telltale rattle. And so what I did was I backed up, went and got a shovel with a much larger, with the much larger handle, and just gently moved the broom that was leaning up against the wall out of the way. And sure enough, there's a western diamondback rattlesnake curled up, facing me with a very pissed off look on its face. And what he got in return was a very pissed off me with a shovel going right at his head. So
that's cool. That's the way to do it. Okay,
yep.
So
Nick 1, Snake 0.
That, you know what? You keep that score as it is. I was sitting in the garage, and I thought maybe perhaps I might have knocked something over because I heard a noise that sounded, well, it was the rattle, but it was rattling so fast I thought that maybe like a can of spray something might have got punctured, like like a can of like carburetor cleaner or WD-40 or something might have like fell over and was on its on the nozzle spraying or something like that. So it's kind of in a dark corner, so I went and I grabbed the big flashlight, and when I put some light into the area, the rattling noise got a little more intense. So all right, I'm a gun guy, and I'm doing a gun show in about a half hour. So let's how are we going to take care of this 12 gauge?
And what type of shot were you using in this?
I believe it was the first one I grabbed, which would have been probably a number 7, like dove and quail load. So it would have been, just fine bird shot. And this is a shot from about, I'm going to guess about 9 feet is where I did this. And I used a single shot H&R 12 gauge break open action.
Right. And there's no choke on this. It's just
no, there's no snake choke
there's
or
no
anything.
Snake choke.
This is all open cylinder work.
There you go. Yeah, I would think you would want full on that one.
Yeah. So surprisingly, okay, so it was sitting in I have like a wooden desk, kind of like a shop desk, and it was sitting underneath in the very bottom shelf, and it was up in the corner and kind of balled up. And I put the bead right on that and pulled the trigger, and it was very, very loud inside the garage. Nobody said anything. There been no police or any kind of interesting thing like that. Somebody just pulled up in the front yard. Let's see if that is a cop. No, but somebody is in the truck.
Awesome.
All right. Yeah, really awesome. You have no idea how really glad I am that's not the cops showing up. So I blasted it, and then lo and behold, I think it was pregnant. There was some little wiggly worm-looking sons of bitches coming out of that thing. So I don't know if it was worms or like a parasite in it, or if like I said, I don't know if rattlesnakes give live birth or not. But just to be safe, I went and I got myself some carburetor cleaner and a lighter.
Yeah, so
and proceeded to burn the gut.
That's the interesting thing about rattlesnakes is that they gestate their young, and they hatch them in utero, and they give live birth. So
they do give live birth. All right, so those were babies.
Yeah,
I'm getting me some more carburetor.
Yeah, get you some more. Get you some Raid and a good lighter.
I think carburetor cleaner works best. You get a better jet with.
Yeah, you do. And plus, with that nozzle, you're doing okay. So
I take the nozzle off. I take the little red tube off because that ends up catching on fire and becomes like a major hazard. And I'm telling you, when you're discharging a 12 gauge and burning shit in your garage with carburetor cleaner and a big lighter, safety is of utmost concern.
That's right. You definitely want to make sure you're in a well-ventilated area and using eye protection.
which of course I use none of that.
Yeah, well, practice what you preach is one thing. Do as I say, not as I do is another.
Okay, so this kind of like it kind of threw off like kind of what I wanted to talk about a little bit tonight, but it's kind of fun to discuss this. I don't know. I can't see chat right now, so I don't know if everybody's like disgusted by this or thinking we're a bunch of morons or whatever. But
And,
let's
and, and
discuss
if
how
they
we
are,
kill
it
snakes.
doesn't really matter.
It doesn't really matter. Let's discuss how we kill snakes best.
Yeah. Here's the interesting
Gun.
thing is, I was considering the options that you had available. I was almost going to put 22 rat shot as your choice of
I thought about the
ammunition
22.
today.
Like I thought about the 22 going to get a 22 just because, like I said, I'm in a garage. I know I did not want a solid projectile. I wanted something that put out many, many tiny projectiles. And honestly, where the rat shot is located is in a dark area, and so bitch, I already got one snake. I ain't finding another one.
I'm not trying to figure out where the others are.
Really, this is not what I had planned for the evening. All right, so I just I happen to have a box of 12 gauge from the last time I went dove hunting, and yeah, grabbed that. And I grabbed the first shotgun I could get my hands on, which was that single shot, and illuminated the area, took aim, and squeezed the trigger with a gentle pulling through, no stopping.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Very, very few things, make me averse to being near them. One is math classes. The other is snakes. And thankfully enough, I've slayed my math class, and I haven't had to worry about slaying any snakes lately.
Congratulations. Maybe I should have taken more math, and I wouldn't have to deal with snakes.
Well, that's at least what they told me in high school.
Yeah, well, they told us all kinds of lies in high school.
Yeah. So going back to math, what you remember the television show Black Sheep Squadron?
Right.
About Marine Corps Major Greg Pappy Boynton. Well, I am officially one of them college boys now. So finished up the degree yesterday, and my diploma will be here sometime between February and the beginning of March. And can't say enough that I'm happy to be done with that stuff. And if anybody has a kid in high school that tells them that they're going to use some kind of trigonometry or calculus in the real world, they're liars, because the only other time that I've ever encountered that is going back to college. So, I'm happy it's done and over with. We'll see if it works out for a promotion at work, and just maybe I'll turn that promotion money into a new firearm.
I think that's a good idea. That's kind of a timely gesture right now, considering what's going on. Tonight is the Republican debate, and firearms are sure to be a topic of that.
I think they're probably going to be less of a topic in this one than they would be in the Democratic debates, if they were going to have any more.
Yeah, really. I don't think they're having any more Democratic debates.
It's already been Hillary's up on there. There's only two candidates to really speak of. You got the 75-year-old socialist from Vermont, and then you got Hillary, the purveyor of everything top secret in a civilian email server. And I don't even think Martin O'Malley really registers, and he was the only other one that kind of had a halfway decent chance of, saying, "Hey, I'm an alternative to the crazy socialist and the woman who just really doesn't matter anymore."
That's a fairly interesting statement that she doesn't matter, because I will say she's been suspiciously silent for the last couple of weeks. There's been like very, very little media coverage of her.
Yeah, the only thing that I've really heard media come out and say is that, first off, she was very quick on the trigger when it came to doing live tweets about the San Bernardino shootings and making it an issue about gun control instead of terrorist control, which, by the way, she fails 100% of the time.
She failed on terrorist control a long time ago.
So it's interesting, though, that the other thing that news media was reporting was that she was going to go to Minnesota and basically give her thesis on how to defeat terror. And I found it interesting because the reason that she's going to Minnesota is because Minneapolis is a hotbed of recruitment of Somali men who are, been resettled in the United States.
Okay, so that's a very interesting point. What are the similarities from like the Minneapolis, Minnesota, Great Lakes region and Somalia? What would make Somali a good fit there? What natural resources available in that area that Somalis would say, this reminds me of Mogadishu?
That would be the white chicks. That's the resource they're after. And I will tell you that right now, the only reason why the Somalis were settled in Minnesota and Minneapolis in general is because that was going to fundamentally change the demographic makeup of that area. Being Minnesota is a heavily Democratic state to begin with, you're gonna import a group of people that largely have no concept of American democracy, especially coming from where they were from. And we've seen it in other areas where, Liberians, Senegalese, other, East and West Africans have been resettled in the United States. Just like we saw it with the Kurds being resettled in Upper New York State and Western New York State. It's interesting how the State Department goes and grabs different ethnic makeups and imports them into areas of the United States that are fairly homogenous as race breakdown goes, and really uses that to upset the political makeup of that landscape.
So you think that they're brought in to basically to kind of throw a wrench into the way that the voting process is working?
Well, the voting process is not working to begin with, but I firmly believe that the reason that certain ethnic groups are brought into areas where they really have, they have nothing there for them. There's no infrastructure set up as far as support to them. What would be the other alternative? I can't think of another reason. And,
maybe I'm a little more suspicious of goings on in my nation. I'm going to say this honestly, with no sort of insult, but I've got a different perspective on the country because, well, I've been here longer than you, and that's not an insult, but you were away for a good long time.
Yeah, I was the one that was helping all these people get rounded up to come back here.
Right. You were out there handing out the Greyhound tickets to these fools.
Yep. So
I see this in a little bit different way. I don't see this as any sort of like gerrymandering the vote or anything. I think it's far more nefarious than that. I think that bringing in Somalis to, the Great Lakes region, for example, is not necessarily about destroying the voting patterns or, making sure that the Democrats hold power for the next 200 years. I think it's far more nefarious. I think it's to destroy the national fabric. I think we're seeing that with a lot of the immigration in Europe. Why do you have to send, the Syrians to Sweden and Iraqis to Finland? They have to travel through like 18 different countries to get there.
Yeah, and that's the same.
That's not really. They don't have any kind of like it's not even the same climate.
Well, and that's the reason why a lot of people kind of wonder right now. You got countries like Hungary that are basically disallowing any of these asylum seekers, as they're being called. They're not basically going to accept any of these folks who come from Syria, Iraq, or Afghanistan after they've made it through countries, on the fringe of the European Union, because if you're going to immigrate to, we'll say you immigrate to Greece from Turkey.
If you're getting out of a war zone, if that's your main concern, you're not necessarily going from a war zone to a place that's giving away economic freebies. You're going from a war zone to a place that's safe.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
wouldn't that be like the object of it? I mean, if you're fleeing a war zone, the idea is to stay alive.
You would think, right? But when it comes down to it, why are the mass of humanity that are coming overwhelmingly military age males between the age of 15 and 50?
I think this is where we start getting into back to where I was saying that this is to really subvert the American way of life, if nothing else. These are not people that are knowledgeable about our way of life other than what they've seen on, media. They're not familiar with our laws, with our customs, with traditions in this land, and they make no effort to
Assimilate.
become a part of it. There is no assimilation, and I mean that's not necessarily, you don't have to, come off the boat and then immediately buy a cowboy hat, but this is, well, there's no easy way to say it, so I'll just come straight out and say it. We've got people in elected officials in positions of power in this country that are dual citizens of another nation. And while they may be our only friends in the Middle East, without them, we've got no enemies in the Middle East. And really, in the end, any kind of strife that the United States has with people in the Middle East, and especially with Muslims, benefits that one nation tremendously. And I don't think I'm out of line by saying that. There's more nefarious things going on with the state of Israel and the United States being the recipient and on the losing end of whatever kind of deal it is with Israel than there are benefits to my people.
Yeah. Well, speaking of benefits to our people,
I mean, like straight up, honestly, there's no hashtag open borders for Israel out there.
Yeah. You don't get any of that. I was going to say, speaking of benefits for our people, are you starting to see any kind of pre-Christmas sales at your local big box stores for firearms?
Well, I'll tell you what. Better than a big box store, I went to a gun show over the weekend, and this would have been it's a SACSIT show, and it was in the city of Robstown, Texas, which is just outside of Corpus Christi. And it was not necessarily the biggest show I've seen, but it was one of the busier shows I've seen. I got there at about 11 o'clock, and there were 25 people out the door waiting to get in. And it was raining. And it was a very good weekend to be a retailer of small polymer pistols in .380 and .32 caliber. There was a lot of guys buying their wife a pistol. Lots of women, more women than I usually see, and different kinds of women. And by that, I guess you kind of got to get into like kind of some stereotypes of the gun show. Usually, when you see women as customers at the show, they're either like a disaffected, bored wife who's just kind of walking around and indulging her husband's passion. You have like the girlfriend of the gangster who is probably a stripper. She's showing way too much skin and has all kinds of tattoos and walking kids around. And then you have like some women who are genuinely interested, but they're a very small minority. This show was completely different in the fact there was a lot of couples there and a lot of women looking at firearms that were not in those two previous generalizations.
Categories.
Yeah, they did not look to be extra wealthy, and they did not look to be gangster kind of chicks.
Yeah.
These were guys who were worried about their wife having to, go to work and run into ISIS at work. And that was ISIS at work. That's exactly why they were buying the guns.
Well, we know that ISIS was threatening the entire Los Angeles County school district today.
640,000 students laid off, which I'd really like to see like how much like shoplifting.
Well, see, we don't say layoff. We say the students were furloughed for the day.
Oh this. I don't even know what to make. I mean, regarding that,
I've seen
I think it's good that they took the precautions and everything. It's out of line, similar to how they act out of line when there's a report of a man with a gun at a school, and it turns out to be somebody walking with an umbrella or something like that. I think they took it a little bit far this time, but then they're playing for the camera as well. They're playing for the national audience.
Well, and that's the thing. You can genuinely say, hey, we're gonna overreact out of an abundance of caution. But I think the reaction is I would say it's a little ham-fisted at best. They're basically searching for a needle in a haystack, and then the House Intelligence Subcommittee came out hours afterwards and says they've determined that this is a hoax based on local law enforcement. And the superintendent of the school district basically stated that he wanted every single school checked and cleared prior to allowing the students to come back in.
Which, you know what, he's got to at that point. He's already made a big enough scream and big enough mess about it that they do have to check every school now.
Yeah,
and from what I heard, it's 900 schools throughout the district, and with 640,000 students that were impacted today. Now, this all feeds into the firearm debate, because this is just another aspect of terrorism, which is being morphed into the gun control debate. I personally think, being kind of still within my little mainstream media experiment that I'm undergoing right now, I would say that the rhetoric being pushed is at least equal to what it was before the last Feinstein gun bill, and it exceeds what it was in 1994. I think, if you don't hear them say gun control on CNN, you haven't been listening for more than like 3 minutes.
Yeah, certainly. And I can tell you, I get a couple different news channels streamed to me while I'm at work in my day job. And one of them is MSNBC, one of them is CNN. And I will tell you that every topic has some angle on gun control. Earlier this week, they were playing up the story that the third anniversary of the Sandy Hook shootings finally occurred on a school day. And, you got to kind of sit there and think, you know what? Are these news organizations, are they just clamoring for something that can generate a news story?
Are they news organizations, or are they social?
They're not even news organizations.
Platforms.
These are political action committees with a mouthpiece.
Right. These appear to be basically social engineering platforms to me.
Yeah, and I think that it's been widely accepted that after the San Bernardino shootings, the amount of background checks submitted for skyrocketed. Even in states.
I think I saw something that said 6,000 just in San Bernardino County over the 2 days following the shooter.
Yeah, and here's the bottom line. Poll numbers right now suggest that the U.S. Within the U.S., citizens don't feel that they're safe. They feel that the president has handled this situation in terms of his response to terrorism inadequately. And I think that what we're seeing is that people are starting to come around to the idea of a little bit of self-reliance. And for my Korean friends, a little juche out there, to really take care of themselves and not have to be dependent upon a system that really just exists to clean up a mess.
And we see that's what right now is the great big divide in the presidential debate, which honestly is fixed. But it would appear that the left, or what's traditionally called the left, the Democratic Party, is really advocating for you to give up the ability to take care of yourself.
Right, and if you were listening to the very fine Irish Wasserman Schultz, you would know that there's absolutely zero difference that is discernible between the socialists and the Democrats, because as the chairman of the Democratic committee, she was not able to give an answer what separates Bernie Sanders from the rest of her party.
Absolutely not. She can't. And honestly, I don't think she cares, because her job is to make sure that Hillary walks in the door.
Yeah, and I think that that's one of the things that Martin O'Malley has been real keen to point out in terms of why there are no further scheduled debates, why there were only two to begin with, and why is she shielding Hillary Clinton. And I think that it's plainly evident to anybody. Hillary Clinton is not an unknown commodity. People know what they're getting with her. And
people know exactly they don't want it.
Well, there's a certain element out there that is perfectly fine with Hillary Clinton, and it's perfectly fine that she obfuscates from the rules. They're never going to have their point of view changed. I mean, they are. I think you can use the term bitter clingers. they will not see that she can do any wrong. I think it came out today that a vast majority of the emails that were originally thought to be just classified secret have now been thoroughly reviewed and have been determined to be containing information that is top secret. I'll tell you, I deal with top secret information on a daily basis. And yeah, if I mishandle any of that stuff, not only would I just,
over.
not only would I just
Your
be,
job is done, and you'll go to jail.
I would land myself in jail for the rest of my natural life. And
Right,
this is one of those
and,
things that a lot of people don't understand, is that she is so entrenched in corruption that it's very unlikely that she will actually face charges. And if she does, there's a political pardon that's got her name on it.
She's so entrenched in corruption. If you really take a look at, her brother happened to get like a gas drilling contract in Haiti, and she's got kind of the Clinton Foundation has a Haiti Foundation in Haiti, just to say the least. But her brother ends up with a massive gas drilling contract in Haiti, just like Joe Biden's son ends up with a massive gas drilling he's a senior vice president of some sort of like Ukrainian oil company now.
Not the dead Biden.
Not the dead one, the alive one.
The alive one who was bounced from the Navy for doing a little bit too much cocaine.
Right. Now he's more than happy to take part in the festivities and unrest and turmoil that's going on in the Ukraine, and probably worsening the relationship that we have with the Russians, and whatever. It's all business in the end, right?
Right. And I think that just goes to show
how many
that
Americans get screwed by it.
Yeah. I mean, it just goes to show that there are people that will not, for whatever reason, vote for Hillary Clinton, and there are those that will do so time and time and time and time again. As you'll probably see, the voter fraud will come up with her, guaranteed. But those people will think that she can do no wrong, and she is the exact cure for what ails this country.
Well, I think she's absolutely everything that this country does not need any more of. I think she needs to be in jail. But I think that's painfully obvious with us. Her calls for gun control have not ceased, though. In her suspicious silence, I mean, it's suspicious to say the least. Yeah, I think it's more like ominous.
Yeah, I think that it's interesting that she's going to choose to go to Minnesota to speak out about her plans to really rein in the terror threat to the United States when her record in dealing with terror is really an abject failure. The other side of the coin is that you got to listen for the nuanced reporting, and you got to really look between the lines. This is still being reported as a shooting. This is being reported as a crazy person with a gun. The whole San Bernardino issue. This is, aside from the whole media, contaminating a crime scene and the FBI not knowing what the hell is going on. I think that this is part and parcel to the whole left side of the argument, screaming for gun control. It's not that they don't want,
And they're not only screaming for gun control, they are screaming for confiscation.
Right, and that's what it is. And I think the president a few months back talked about, you can do common sense gun control if you follow the Australian model, which was actually gun confiscation. Started with the registration and it ended with the confiscation and destruction of personally owned firearms. He wants that European style. Register everything that moves. I mean, I can tell you from firsthand experience, the Europeans take, and specifically Germans, take gun control very seriously. For anybody that's out there, if you've got a rifle or a shotgun that has a changeable barrel, that barrel, which other than being attached to a working firearm is nothing more than a metal cylinder, that has to be registered as an individual weapon overseas, and that's the kind of nitpickery that they're trying to go after here in the States. And in order to affect that, you're going to start seeing more and more talk of the president trying to utilize, his executive authority, and whether he crafts more executive memoranda or executive orders, you're going to hear him try and go after this. I mean, he's got roughly, it's now December. He's got about almost 13 months left in office, I would say. And I would
He could swing some serious damage in 13 months.
Yeah, 13 months, especially when the political landscape is really not going to be anything more than a sea of turmoil, especially for the last 6 months of that. Um, you're going to have an election in November. You're going to have a month of transition from November, December, and then going into January with the inauguration. And there is a lot of damage that can be done in that time. And I think you're actually seeing the result of all the previous years of inaction or negligent action that he's taken in terms of dealing with the terror threat that our nation really faces. The servicemen and women only can go over there and do enough killing, and it's funny.
And at some point, you have to stop funding.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. It's interesting. I keep bringing to mind the former State Department spokesman Marie Harf, who is probably known for her very large glasses on her very small face, and the fact that she said that the reason why we have a problem with terror in ISIS is because they don't have any jobs. I think she said it was too nuanced an issue for most people to understand.
That means they just made that shit up.
Well, not only did they just make that shit up, but they were going to mock the average person for thinking that they were full of shit.
Well, I think that's probably in Rules for Radicals, that book. You mock when you're confronted with somebody who can refute your evidence, you mock them and try to degrade their position to make them look like a crazy man or something. I think that was probably a little bit of that.
Yeah, there's a term for that type of attack.
I think it's called, is that gaslighting? Is that what that's called?
No, I believe that would be the ad hominem.
Oh yeah, the ad hominem attack. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, trying to detract from the person himself instead of their argument.
Well, we see that with many things, and it's definitely that's an issue with firearms. Pretty much, I think the national view being proposed by Izvestia and Pravda, aka MSNBC and CNN, are that gun-toting, backward hillbilly, redneck, tobacco-chewing fools with a Bible in their back pocket just don't know as much as the people who could have been an extra on Seinfeld.
Yeah. Well, and it's quite amazing
I think
how many
that
of
is
those that are
probably
out there.
one of the most. That's one of the most divisive things, I think, and probably one of the most dangerous things. I just to kind of like go on a tangent for a second. I think one of the most dangerous, not necessarily one of the most dangerous, but one of the most powerful words in the English language is "we."
Yeah.
W-E. I think that's a very, very powerful word, and this particular brand of media that we have is taking that word and turning it into a weapon, and more accurately into a tool to divide people, because a lot of the times they will say "we," and I don't want to have anything to do with them people.
Yeah. Well, you take a look back at the old Russian and Chinese and North Korean propaganda. It was always us against them.
Right, and we've seen that even with out of this administration. If you're not with us, you're with the terrorists. And I guess if anything, use your head, think for yourself. If you disagree with us, 718-717-8296, call in and tell us why we're wrong.
Not that we'll really ever change our opinion, but we'd be liking to hear yours.
Well, I'll tell you what. If somebody could really, really, really put it down and show me exactly where I'm wrong, I'd be willing to give them the opportunity. I can't say that I won't ever change my opinion, because that makes me kind of like small-minded at that point. But I will say that I'm unlikely to change it over any kind of feeling.
Yeah. Well, Mike, what have
by feeling?
I was going to say, what have you seen in terms of now that we were dealing with the dead snake issue and the shotgun? What are you seeing come available for semi-autos or for good pump actions in the area?
Nothing in my area right now.
So
I found that shotguns here in my area, used ones, you'd be better off just going out and buying a new one. You're not going to get a deal on a used shotgun.
yeah,
Um, I think really the only reason to buy a used shotgun here is because you know the person that you're buying it from, and it's kind of a trade or a buddy deal or something like that, or you are actively trying to stay off any kind of registry, which I don't got a problem with that. Good for you.
yeah. Well, I'm looking at the local ads. The last couple days, I actually went into one of the big boxes today, and I got absolutely no problem saying that Gander Mountain,
Which big box was it?
Gander Mountain today had absolutely the worst customer service I've actually had the displeasure of experiencing in quite a while. Went there to actually take a look at some of their used shotguns to see what was available, and spoke to an associate, and he pointed me in the direction of where the used shotguns were, and said there would be some associates nearby, and that I just had to stand at the counter. They'd be there to help me in a few seconds. Well, it's interesting. I'm standing up at the counter. I ring the bell. Associate kind of comes out to the front, kind of pokes his head around the corner, sees me standing up there, dips his head back in, and decides not to come back out. And
Or he was on break.
yeah, it might have been on break. It could be because I was in uniform. It just depends. I found it interesting, though, that they obviously didn't need my time or my money, so I had no
Let
problem.
me ask you a question real quick. Which uniform were you in?
I was in the U.S. Army digital camouflage, otherwise known as the
Okay,
Army
so-
combat uniform.
Was that is that similar to any kind of uniform that is worn by police?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
No, our local police out here wear that dark navy blue. The county sheriff's deputies wear the county sheriff khaki, as we call it.
Do the county sheriffs still wear like slacks or regular pants, or do all the cops in your area wear like combat clothing?
No. They still wear the slacks, and as a matter of fact, our city cops, our motorcycle officers, still wear the calf length boots, and they've got the regular blue pants with the gold trim down the side. It looked like they were made out of polyester. I actually had a haircut not too long ago, and was sitting next to a motor officer, and I would say that the tailoring or the alteration shop that the city police utilize is not very good. They are bad need of a Korean alteration store.
Well, all I got to do is go cruise up near any kind of Air Force base or Navy base. There'll be one right off within a half mile of it.
Yeah. Well, and you won't have that problem any town outside of an Army post. So I just, like I said, I found it interesting. I may decide to go. Tomorrow's actually my last day of the work week because Thursday I've got a little bit of training to perform, but I'm taking Friday off. Actually getting some new furniture for the house, getting a propane tank installed, and getting a quote performed by Crutchfield. They're going to come out and take a look at my fireplace and see what it's going to cost to get me set up with my television mounted above my fireplace, and run some wires down to the cable outlet and the satellite outlet and whatnot. So Friday's going to be a full day. Hopefully Saturday I'm going to be assisting with the National Wild Turkey Federation. We have a disabled sportsman's hunt, and I'm going to volunteer my time to go out there and assist some hunters that may not otherwise have a chance to get out in the woods. We've had some great weather the last couple days, although we did have a cold front push through last night, and we had some thunderstorms. But we're looking at mid to low 60s on Saturday, and I hope to get out there and give these guys every opportunity they have to be able to use some shotguns or rifles and get them set up on some deer.
Well, that's really nice of you to spend your time doing that and giving back. That's really kind of cool.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I think we kind of underserve is we don't talk about some of our mobility impaired friends out there that enjoy the shooting sports. And that's a consideration that I think a lot of people don't ever really come into contact with. Is maybe you've got a family member who has a has a slight disability or an impairment to normal functioning. And what if you have something wrong with your hands, or what if you have an arthritic joint or something like that? What is the right type of firearm for that situation?
That's an interesting question. There was a firearm developed a few years ago called the Palm Shot, and it was basically it was a squeeze pistol, and the barrel, the pistol itself was sort of egg shaped with a barrel sticking out of the middle of it, and you would actually have the barrel between your middle finger and your fourth finger, and you would squeeze the pistol, and it would discharge a 38 round. And there was some attempts to actually have that declared a medical device, and it didn't really progress any further. And I'm kind of sad because that's a fairly nice design for somebody who does have limited range of motion with their hand, and still gives them the opportunity to defend themselves. And I mean, it's would have been a nice collector's item for somebody as well, but it really just kind of like disheartened me that was deemed not, I guess, acceptable as a medical device because it's a firearm.
Yeah, and when you think about it, that kind of would put that Springfield M6 survival rifle in that same category, because it is a squeeze trigger. Usually have it in the 22 long rifle configuration over a 410, or you even have it in the 22 Hornet over the 410. That might be a decent type. I wouldn't go so far as to call it a medical device. I would call it what it is. But I would say that this may be something that actually, anybody that has arthritic joints in their hands, maybe their fingers don't function, very well. This would be something that can give them an opportunity to go out, hit the range, enjoy some time outside. Getting exposed to these disabled hunters has been an eye-opening experience. Last Saturday, I participated in a hunt where we had some mobility impaired folks, guys that were, confined to wheelchairs, and we actually got them set up, helped basically create trailers that we were able to strap in their wheelchairs, get them set up, and one of our participants actually scored himself a 14-point white-tailed deer using a 12-gauge shotgun. And you should have seen the smile on this guy's face. It did the heart good just to be out there and see him truly enjoying something that he might not have had the chance to otherwise. Because I'll tell you what, I haven't seen a 14-point buck in a very long time.
That is really kind of amazing.
So,
and that just goes to show the divide between the actual people who use the firearms and the people who are screaming about the firearms. People who are screaming about them have no idea. The people who are trying to legislate them have even less idea than the people who are screaming about them in the media. And they're really, in my mind, I keep thinking about what Captain Gringo said about this being the issue that people would stand up for. And the more and more I think about it, he's absolutely correct. I can see exactly where he's saying this, and I can see it in effect. Over the past couple of days, having some conversations with some friends about the political atmosphere. I mean, it is a relevant topic. I mean, there's really an assault on the things that we enjoy, especially in my area. Firearms are a big part of life down here, and people will not put up with any sort of confrontation at them.
Well, but see, that's interesting because, not very far away from where you live, there is a very strong left-wing bastion in the Gulf Coast, and that would be in Corpus Christi. Same way with where we grew up in Arizona. Arizona is a predominantly gun-loving conservative state, but when you get towards University of Arizona in Tucson, it is a sea of blue. And one of the things that I find interesting is that even after the Gabrielle Giffords incident at one of her meet and greets in town, you've got folks like her husband that are willing to basically circumvent the existing laws that we have on straw purchases.
Well, not only that, break laws, and then call for just pure hypocrisy.
Well, and that even goes back to the David Gregory at MSNBC bringing a standard capacity 30 round magazine for an AR series rifle into the district and then holding it up on set during a news broadcast. There's videographic evidence that shows that the individual is breaking the law, but because he's a member of a certain tilt of the media, the chief of police declines to prosecute that as an offense, basically in the laws that were created for that very reason.
Well, and then we've also got Feinstein standing on the Senate floor holding an AK-47 variant with her finger on the trigger.
God bless her, she was ready.
Yeah, why couldn't these accidents that we always hear about? And speaking of accidents, let's go over the 4 rules of gun safety.
Please do.
All right, first rule of firearm safety is every firearm is loaded until you physically and visually verify and confirm that it is not loaded. So go ahead and break open the action, pull the slide back, flip that cylinder out. Make sure that there is not a bullet or a shell in place. Rule number 2 is keep that barrel pointed in a safe direction. Do not cover anything you don't wish to destroy. Rule number 3, know what your target is and know what is beyond your target at all times. And rule number 4, do not be a fine kind. Keep your booger hook off the bank switch until you are ready to discharge the weapon.
There you go. And one of those things for folks out in shotgun country, I know that's not really popular where you're at. I'll
tell you what, shotguns are pretty damn popular in this house.
Yeah,
you cannot beat a 12
they're worth
gauge.
is just
I will give my. I'm telling you, it's really nice to be able to say, I know I've got a box of shells right there, and I got a shotgun right here, and I had to take care of the problem, and I did. And I mean, I'm not bragging about shooting this thing, but what if I'd have got up in the middle of the night and the damn thing would have bit me?
Yeah. Well, Michael, did I run down the fact that I actually got a chance to go to the range this past Saturday?
You have not regaled with this.
So actually, it was Friday. Saturday, I was on the hunt. Friday, I went ahead and took out quite a few rifles and some shotguns out to the range. Started out first with the 300 Blackout and went ahead and sighted in on the iron sights. And at a minimum, I will tell you that if you are considering the purchase of iron sights, do yourself a favor and go buy the Magpul Embus backup sights. Within 9 rounds, I had all of my groupings hitting dead center on the target, and the acquisition of my point of aim was quick. Follow-up shots, like I said, just the way that I have the rifle set up with the extra long rails, a 15-inch long Midway Industries rail, that larger sight base, I will tell you that makes a hell of a difference. And transition from that to the 5.56 to verify that rifle was still zeroed, and the center of my target looked like Swiss cheese. It was just holes all over the red dot and not a whole lot of holes outside of it. I will say this, that it was a shooting range that was developed by the Department of Forestry. It's actually in the George Washington National Forest. And talk about some range courtesy. We had some douchebags who decided that even though there was a pistol range 20 feet to our left, that they were going to go ahead and impact my range time by coming over and trying to fire a pistol on the rifle range. And as I sat there with an incredulous look on my face, and the individual asked me if there was anything wrong, I said, yeah, obviously you can't read, because if that is a pistol range and it's for that purpose, why are you risking injury by coming onto a rifle range and attempting to stand 50 feet down range?
What was his reply?
I got basically the deer in the headlights look, and I could tell that this individual was kind of embarrassed for the fact that he was kitted up like he was a firearms instructor, and I was obviously dealing with a novice shooter that was with him. And when I reminded him of the fact that you generally don't want to go down range while people are using the rifle range for its intended purpose, he kind of took the discretion is a better part of valor approach, and he quieted down and he retired his sidearms, and then he decided to go ahead and start instruction on the rifles.
Well, that's just kind of asinine.
Well, the way I look at it is you could be a nice enough guy all the time, but he had potentially entered not only himself but his charge into a dangerous situation by deciding to go down range while I'm actually getting ready to go ahead and start shooting.
And I don't think you're out of line by telling him that he was a jackass. I think he did the right thing. I think tact is called for in a situation like that.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, you never know
but
when
it is your
somebody's going to decide
responsibility to say something.
Yeah, you never know when somebody's going to decide to take that opportunity to go ahead and lose their mind. But I think that there is a certain amount of urgency that he detected in my voice, and understanding that, number one, that he had violated, the range rules to begin with, and he had put not only himself but his charge in danger. Basically the guy that he was going to go out there and instruct in shooting. So, one of the things that I think we don't get to talk about a lot is make sure you're paying attention not only to the rules of the range where you're at, or if it's a private range and you have established your own set of guidelines, make sure that you follow them and you set the example for other people to follow as well.
And I don't think you should be afraid to go ahead and have a conversation with somebody if you see them doing something unsafe.
Yeah, being in the military, everybody likes to think that they're going to be exposed to the greatest dangers, and for the most part, we try and operate in a safe manner. But if you see something that is unsafe and potentially dangerous, it does do you better to speak up and alert somebody to the idiocracy that they're about to embark upon.
Especially when it could involve a chunk of your flesh becoming dislodged from your body. I really can't.
Ask Dick Cheney.
Once again at this show this weekend, of course, it happens just like at every show. I mean, everybody's picking up a gun, and the first place their finger goes is right to the trigger. And these are just horrible habits. And I really wish that there was a table with gun safety or something. Not that it would do any good. Nobody would ever go to it or pay any attention to it.
Well, that's one of the things, if you had a state that legislated that you must take and pass a firearm safety course with a hands-on demonstration, I think that you would hear quite a few lobbying groups tell you that you're infringing upon your Second Amendment rights when, why wouldn't you want to make sure?
I don't think that there should be mandated.
No, not that it should be mandated, but I'm sitting here thinking, if you can't properly demonstrate that you understand and know how to.
I agree with that, but I think that there's other ways to resolve that issue other than mandated training. I would say that maybe the NRA should put its money where its mouth is and start opening up free to the public training centers.
Yeah, and
I know that the NRA has tried to put training programs in the schools, and of course we can't teach children about guns.
Yeah, well, they actually have that Eddie the Eagle program. I think certain school districts didn't want to have that in there.
Right, and it didn't really go anywhere because it was moderately popular and moderately successful, but it didn't have the effect that they wanted to have, which was
well, when you got to compete with McGruff the crime dog, that he's entrenched.
McGruff the crime dog and the DARE program.
Yeah,
there's only so much propaganda to kids.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, I'm looking forward to this hunt and helping out on Saturday. I'll give you guys a report about how things happen with that. I'll give you a word of caution. Make sure that if you're going to operate a semi-automatic shotgun, that you do not put your fingers inside the action. Do not get your thumb caught by the bolt. It is no bueno.
No. It's not good. I've seen that happen to people before, and it's usually a bloody mess. And you end up having a little more maintenance on the shotgun because, blood kind of has a tendency to ruin.
Yeah. So I want to give a good shout out to our guys in chat, our listeners in chat. Thanks for being on. Thanks for following us. And Michael, it's good to get a chance to talk to you today. You've been pretty much locked up with trying to get this college degree finished, and thank goodness it's done.
Well, I can't congratulate you enough, Nick. That's a really, really big accomplishment. In today's society, that's really the thing. I am about to go and search my place. Hey, grab me a couple of shells and another shotgun.
Yeah,
I'm going to come up with the next side. Thanks to UCY.TV. Yep. Everybody stick around. Wonderful programming coming up. Thanks a lot.